Please! Please, doctor, don't let her die! I'll do anything!
Young man, go and bring the money for the operation, or we discharge her today, and that is final.
Daniel drops to his knees beside the hospital bed, hands gripping his mother's frail arms as if his strength alone could keep her alive. His voice cracks, echoing across the cold, sterile ward. Please,
Please, doctor, don't let her die!
Let her die.
I'll do
I'll
anything!
do anything. His eyes burn with tears he refuses to let fall, sweat dripping down his temples in the stifling heat of his own panic. Around him, the fluorescent lights hum overhead, sterile and indifferent, illuminating rows of patients who barely notice the young man pleading for a life he may not be able to save. The doctor looks down at him with an expression carved from stone. Young man, he says, voice flat, almost rehearsed. Go and bring the money for the operation or we discharge her today. And that is final. Daniel's knees dig into the cold tile floor, his stomach twisting like a live thing inside him. 42,000 naira. 42,000 he doesn't have. He gropes for words, for options, for miracles, but none come. His chest heaves with desperation. His mother lies there, pale and trembling, her shallow breaths punctuating the silence of the ward. How am I supposed to get that money? Daniel whispers, his voice trembling, catching the attention of the nurse passing by. She shakes her head and walks away. The harsh truth slams into him. There are no angels here. No handouts, no second chances. Only hard, merciless reality. Daniel leans closer, pressing his forehead to his mother's hand. I'll find a way, Mama. I swear I'll find a way. That night, he sits on the steps outside the hospital, the Lagos wind cutting through the darkness, mingling with the ache in his chest. His phone vibrates in his pocket, a message from Tund lighting the screen. I know a way. One night. Done. Daniel freezes. The words feel like fire on his skin. Tund has always been the type of friend who sees shortcuts in life, the opportunities others fear. And right now Daniel is desperate. The bricks he's been carrying, the part-time jobs he's been juggling, nothing has gotten him anywhere near 42,000 naira. He walks home slowly, his mind a storm. Each step feels heavier than the last, dragging him toward a crossroads he doesn't want but may have no choice but to face. He remembers the tiny, dilapidated apartment where his mother waits for him, the smell of stale rice and medicine thick in the air. She deserves more. She deserves life. The next day, Tun sits across from him on the worn couch of their shared student apartment, a smirk playing on his lips. So, you thought about it? Daniel shakes his head, jaw tight. No. I can't. That's not me. Tund leans closer, lowering his voice. Not you. Come on, Daniel. Look around. You've been hauling bricks since dawn, working as a delivery boy trying to pay for that hospital bill. And what's it gotten you? Nothing. But Mrs. Adana, she can help. One night, man. Just one. It's the only way to save your mother. And then you're done. Daniel's stomach churns. Mrs. Adana. The name alone feels like a temptation he should resist. But what Tun doesn't say, what Daniel already suspects, is that this will not end with one night. Luxury, attention, gifts, the thrill of a life he has never known, he will taste it and it will be hard to let go. That evening, Daniel walks into a cafe, the one where Tun says she likes to meet young men. Students, boys like them, eager and desperate. And there she is, Mrs. Adana. Older, elegant, radiating wealth and confidence. She smiles, and the curve of her lips makes Daniel's pulse quicken. Jasmine perfume drifts toward him, intoxicating and almost hypnotic. Daniel, she says, her voice warm but commanding. Tun tells me you're hardworking. Determined. He swallows. I try my best, ma'am. Dinner is slow. Conversation floats above them like a soft, tantalizing fog. She asks about his studies, his mother, his dreams. He answers carefully, measuring every word, aware of the unspoken tension in the room. By the end of the evening, Daniel knows the offer is there, shimmering in the air like gold. One night, enough money to save his mother, and then, freedom. He tells himself it's only for her. Only for the hospital bills. His morals bristle at the thought, but desperation trumps them. For the first time in his life, Daniel allows himself to imagine the life he could have if he accepts. Money in hand, debts cleared, a way to finally breathe. Back home, Layla is waiting. She's his girlfriend, his anchor, the girl who has shared her little meals with him, who has laughed at his jokes even when life had nothing funny in it. She notices the new tension in his eyes, the subtle glow of hope and danger. "Daniel," she says softly, her fingers brushing his arm. "You don't have to do anything stupid. We can figure it out. Together." But he shakes his head. I can do this. Just this once." Layla's eyes well with tears. "Just once, and what then? You'll keep lying, keep running? This isn't you, Daniel. Don't do this." Daniel looks away, guilt gnawing at him, but the thought of his mother, pale and frail in that hospital bed, drowning in debt, is too heavy to ignore. One night. That's all it is. As he steps back into the night, the Lagos streets humming around him, he feels the first stirrings of a dangerous thrill. The path he's about to take will change everything. One night. One choice. One desperate bid to save the woman who gave him life. And as the city lights blur past, Daniel doesn't know that this single night will become the first step into a life of temptation, luxury, betrayal, and a pain far deeper than he has ever imagined. Daniel's hands shake as he adjusts his shirt in the rearview mirror of his borrowed car. His reflection stares back at him, pale, nervous, guilt written across every line of his face. He should be studying for his exams. He should be stacking bricks, earning an honest day's wage. But here he is, hurtling toward a decision that will forever change him. The city pulses outside, neon lights bouncing off puddles from the evening rain. Lagos never sleeps, and tonight, Daniel feels like a spectator in someone else's life, a boy straying into a world too adult for his 19 years. He pulls up to the high-rise apartment Tun said was Mrs. Adana's. The building towers over the street, glass windows reflecting the golden city lights. He swallows hard, gripping the steering wheel as if it could anchor him to reality. He can hear his mother's shallow breathing in his mind, feel the hospital's sterile air pressing against his chest. This is why he's here. For her. Not for the money, not for the thrill. The doorman greets him with a polite nod, and soon he is standing before Mrs. Adana's door. She opens it, dressed in a silk robe that glows softly in the hallway light. Her smile is warm, but Daniel notices the calculating glint in her eyes, the awareness of control, of power. "Daniel," she says, voice smooth as velvet, "I'm glad you came." He nods, unable to find his voice. Tun's words echo in his mind. One night. Just one night. Dinner is elegant, the kind Daniel has never seen. Crystal glasses, silver cutlery, a spread of food that looks more like art than sustenance. And yet he barely tastes it. His mind is a storm. His mother lying weak in the hospital, Layla's worried face in his memory, the small part-time jobs he has abandoned for this. Mrs. Adana talks about her travels, her successes, the freedom money can buy. Every word wraps around Daniel like a silk noose. He feels himself being drawn into her orbit, intoxicated not just by the food or the wine, but by the life she represents. A life of ease, power, and endless opportunity. "Daniel," she finally says, leaning closer, her hand brushing against his, "I know why you're here. I can help your mother. And I can help you too." His pulse races. I don't know if I. "You don't need to think," she interrupts softly, placing her hand over his heart. "Just trust me." The first touch is electric. Daniel freezes, aware of every heartbeat, every breath, every moral line he's crossing. His mind screams for him to stop, to run, to call Layla and apologize. But desperation claws at him, stronger than guilt. This is for his mother. Just this once. They move to the bedroom. Daniel's stomach twists in knots, a mixture of fear, guilt, and an unfamiliar thrill. He remembers Tun's advice, the casual way his friend had described this world. Daniel had laughed nervously then, dismissing it as impossible. But now the impossible is real and he steps forward. That night is a blur of sensations he never expected.
Come to Mama.
The softness of silk against his skin, the warmth of Mrs. Adana's embrace, the intoxicating scent of her perfume. And yet, through it all, guilt gnaws at him. Each moment is a betrayal, not just of Layla but of the boy he once promised to remain. When it's over, Mrs. Adana smiles at him, tender yet satisfied. "You did well, Daniel.
You did well, Daniel.
Your mother will be
fine.
Consider this a new beginning." He nods numbly, hands trembling. Money changes hands. Enough to cover the hospital bills, enough to make him feel for the first time like he has real power. Yet Daniel doesn't feel victorious. He feels hollow. On the way home, he passes Layla's street. He imagines her sitting by the window, hoping, trusting, loving. His chest tightens. He knows he cannot tell her. Not yet. Not ever. She had been the only constant in his life, the girl who shared her little with him when there was nothing to give. And he has betrayed her willingly. Back in his apartment, Daniel counts the money, the crisp bills, a symbol of both relief and sin. His mother's operation is scheduled, she will live. And yet, the taste of that relief is bitter. He feels the first stirrings of a new life pulling him in. A life of luxury, of attention, of risk. A life that will demand more of him than he has ever imagined. The next day, Tund calls. "How was it?" he asks casually, like they're talking about a movie. Daniel swallows hard. "It's done. The money's here. My mother. She'll be okay." Tund grins. "See? Easy. And you know this isn't just a one-time thing. You can explore more. There are opportunities out there. Mrs. Adana likes you. She'll want to see you again." Daniel stiffens. A cold wave of reality washes over him. He nods slowly. I'll think about it." But he knows already. The seed is planted. The taste of luxury, the thrill of desire, the ease of money. It will be hard to resist. And somewhere deep in his heart, a warning bell rings, drowned out by the roar of temptation. Layla calls later that evening. Her voice is soft, filled with concern. "Daniel, are you okay? You seem different." He forces a smile. "I'm fine, Layla. Just tired." She doesn't question further, but Daniel can hear the worry in her voice. He feels a pang of guilt, sharper than anything he has felt before. She was the girl who loved him when he had nothing, who supported him when life crushed him, and he has turned his back on her for a fleeting night of salvation and temptation. As he hangs up, Daniel sits by his window staring at the city lights. He feels the first stirrings of a new life pulling him in. A life that promises wealth and power, but also pain and betrayal. One night was supposed to save his mother. But he can already sense that it may cost him everything else he holds dear. And somewhere in the back of his mind he knows Tund is right. Once you step into this world, it's hard to ever step back. The smell of fresh paint and polished wood fills Mrs. Adana's penthouse as Daniel steps into the living room, blinking at the glittering chandeliers and the soft hum of air conditioning. He hesitates at the door, unsure if this is the kind of world he belongs to. But the weight of his mother's hospital bills still presses on his chest, heavy and unrelenting. He had seen her frail hands clutch the hospital bedsheet, her lips trembling as she whispered, "Daniel, save me." And now, thanks to this one night, she is going to live. Still, as Mrs. Adana smiles at him, handing over a glass of chilled juice, Daniel feels something stir within him. A strange mix of relief, pride, and excitement. He tells himself it's only temporary, only a means to an end. Yet the glint of gold on her wrist and the scent of her perfume wraps around him like a velvet trap. "Relax, Daniel," she says, her voice soft but commanding. "You've done enough stress for 1 week. Let's enjoy tonight." Her words are like a key turning in a lock. He had arrived with a heart full of guilt, and now guilt seems distant. As she laughs, pouring more wine into their glasses, Daniel allows himself a smile. Maybe just this once he deserves it. The first few weeks are a dizzying blur. Mrs. Adana buys him clothes, shoes, and gadgets he never dreamed of owning. Daniel's small, run-down apartment suddenly feels like a shrine to poverty. His friends notice the change immediately. Jide, always a step ahead in knowing the latest schemes, grins at him during a weekend meetup. "Finally," Jide says, clapping him on the shoulder. "You're playing the game now. Welcome to the big leagues, my man." Daniel laughs nervously, feeling both ashamed and proud. "Just to help my mom. That's it. Nothing else." Jide shakes his head, eyes twinkling. "Don't lie to yourself. You're enjoying it. You always wanted more than this life." And Jide is right. Daniel had worked part-time as a bricklayer and sometimes helped at a roadside stall just to make ends meet. Those jobs were honest, exhausting, and left him with just enough to survive. Yet the allure of Mrs. Adana's world, of fast money, luxury, and attention, pulls him in like a tide he cannot fight. Meanwhile, Layla notices the changes in Daniel immediately. She had been by his side through months of struggle, sharing her food when he went hungry, lending him notes from classes he had missed while working odd jobs. And now she watches him drift further away, more distracted by texts and calls from a woman decades older than him, a woman who seems to have endless money and endless patience. "Daniel, please," Layla pleads one evening under the dim glow of the streetlights near the university gate. "I know your mother needs help, but this isn't you. Don't lose yourself for her money. Don't let her control you like this." Daniel frowns, conflicted but also impatient. "Layla, I can't do it your way anymore. I'm doing what I need to do. You don't understand the pressure." "I do," she cries, grabbing his arm. "I've been here since day one. I've seen your struggle. I helped you. But this isn't help. This is something else. Don't throw yourself away for someone like her." Daniel pulls away gently, shaking his head. I can't, Layla. I need this. I need to secure my mother's future, and I'm tired of struggling." Her hands fall to her sides, limp and defeated. "So, you're choosing her over me? After everything?" He looks away, ashamed but stubborn. "I have to." That night, Layla cries herself to sleep in her small apartment. She had been Daniel's anchor, the only girl who believed in him when he had nothing. And now she is watching him drift into a world built on lust and money, a world where he's no longer the boy she knew but a man seduced by luxury. Weeks turn into months. Daniel buys his first car, a gleaming black sedan that turns heads wherever he drives. He moves into a new apartment furnished with expensive furniture and electronics he once only saw in magazines. He eats at the best restaurants, wears designer clothes, and even starts skipping classes, telling himself the university can wait. Mrs. Adana notices the shift and smiles, a quiet satisfaction behind her eyes. She knows he is hooked. Every gift, every dinner, every whispered compliment ties him closer to her. Daniel, once cautious and hesitant, now finds excuses to visit her, sometimes multiple times a week. The money flows, the luxuries flow, and Daniel begins to think less about his honest, tiring jobs and more about what he can gain from her world. But the guilt never fully disappears. Sometimes, late at night, he sits alone in his penthouse apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking of his mother recovering in the hospital and of Layla, who begged him to stay true. He tells himself he is still doing the right thing, but deep down, a small voice whispers that he is not just helping, he is changing. And slowly, subtly, Daniel becomes a man addicted to attention, luxury, and ease. The lines between necessity and indulgence blur. He is no longer just the boy helping his mother. He is someone else entirely, a sugar boy, living a life he never earned but can't seem to quit. Daniel stands in the middle of his mother's newly renovated living room, running a hand along the smooth edges of the new sofa. The walls shine a soft cream color, the floors gleam with polished tiles, and a modern ceiling fan hums quietly overhead. His mother beams at him from the kitchen, her frail hands clasped together in gratitude. You've done so much, Daniel," she says, her voice trembling. "I never imagined." Daniel forces a smile, swallowing the knot in his throat. He knows he's done much more than she can see. He's paid her hospital bills, bought her medicines, upgraded the house, and even hired a helper to manage the household chores. Every time he hands over another luxury item, another bill paid, he tells himself, "This is why I do it. This is why I endure." Yet as he glances at the sleek car parked outside and the designer clothes folded neatly in his closet, he feels a thrill that mixes uneasily with guilt. He is living the life he never imagined, the life of easy money, of power, of attention. And all of it is thanks to Mrs. Adana, the sugar mommy who had appeared at exactly the right moment. It had started innocently enough. A friend, Jide, had suggested the idea, casually mentioning how easy it was to make good money with someone willing to spend. "Think about it, Daniel," Jide had said one evening at the roadside cafe where they often met after classes. "Your mom's bills are piling up. You're working like a slave at that bricklaying job, and for what? We both know you deserve better." At first, Daniel hesitated. The idea of a woman nearly twice his age offering money for companionship, it made his stomach twist. He had imagined his life differently. Long hours at work, sleepless nights studying, and one day a career he could be proud of. But Jide persisted, painting a picture of opportunity. Bills cleared, debts paid, mother's comfort guaranteed. And so, with a mixture of fear and desperation, he met Mrs. Adana. The first encounter had been awkward, charged with tension. Her eyes were sharp, but her smile disarming. She had offered him a deal he could scarcely believe. One night, one meeting, and the money for his mother's surgery was hers to give. Daniel had left the apartment that night with more than just money. He left with a sense of possibility. A path that seemed faster, easier, and far more indulgent than the one he had been trudging along. And even as he returned home to a grateful mother, he knew he had opened a door that could not be closed. Weeks turn into months. Daniel begins to carve out a routine that intertwines school, visits to Mrs. Adana, and his responsibilities at home. He continues to pay for his mother's needs. New furniture, a modern refrigerator, a better stove, and a medical checkup that reassures them both. Every time he hands over cash or a new appliance, he reminds himself that he is doing the right thing. Yet the luxury slowly begins to consume him. His school books collect dust, exams are missed, and lectures unattended. He used to labor under the sun, brick by brick, selling his sweat to survive. But now the allure of Mrs. Adana's world beckons him with its soft carpets, expensive wine, and perfumes that linger long after she leaves the room. Layla notices the change. She approaches him one afternoon in the university courtyard, her eyes earnest, her hands clutching a notebook she had tried to use as a shield against the chaos around them. "Daniel, please," she says softly, yet with desperation lacing every word. "I see what's happening. I know she's giving you everything your heart wants. But at what cost? You're slipping away from your life, from school, from yourself. Don't throw everything away for her." Daniel looks at her, the words heavy on his tongue. "Layla, I'm doing this for my mother. I'm still taking care of her. Haven't you noticed? Everything we have now, it's because of me." Her hands fall, shoulders slumping. "But at what cost, Daniel? Your soul? Your education? Me?" He looks away, guilt flaring briefly, then hardening into resolve. "I can't think about that right now. I need to focus on what matters. My mother's life. Our home. Don't make this harder than it already is." Layla's heart breaks, but she doesn't protest further. She knows this is a fight she cannot win. Instead, she quietly withdraws, watching the boy she loved, who had shared his last bit of bread with her, turn into a man chasing luxuries and fleeting attention. Daniel's world now revolves around Mrs. Adana. He buys
you,
gifts
Mrs.
she
Adana.
suggests,
You always
drives her
know.
to
Only for
appointments,
you.
and spends hours learning to anticipate her whims. Every time he sees the sparkle in her eyes, every time she smiles at him or leans close with a whispered compliment, the pull grows stronger. Yet even amid the indulgence, Daniel is not completely lost. His mother's health stabilizes, her life is better than it has ever been, and their home is a comfortable sanctuary. He tells himself, often aloud in front of her, that he is doing this for her, that all of it, the late nights, the luxury, the sacrifices, is for a noble cause. And as he stands now in the living room, watching his mother arrange flowers in a vase she had admired for months, he allows himself a small, quiet smile. Perhaps he is doing the right thing. Perhaps the choices, however selfish, are justified. Outside the window, the sun dips low, painting the sky in orange and gold. Daniel leans against the balcony, feeling the wind brush his face. Somewhere far away, Layla is moving forward with her life, building dreams that don't include him. Somewhere else, the city hums with people chasing fortunes and heartbreaks alike. And in this moment, Daniel feels a flicker of invincibility. He has money, power, and the thrill of attention. But deep down, he knows the line between indulgence and destruction is thinner than the glass railing he leans against. He doesn't see it yet, but every choice, every gift, every night spent in luxury brings him closer to a reckoning he cannot yet imagine. The moment Daniel makes the decision to drop out of school, the air feels heavier, but also intoxicating. He tells himself it's temporary, that he will return once his mother is secure, once the bills are gone, once the debts are paid. But in truth, the comfort, the thrill, and the endless possibilities of his new life have a grip on him he never expected. He wakes up each morning in the upgraded bedroom, the soft sheets a stark contrast to the cracked mattress he used to know. The first thing he sees is the sunlight bouncing off polished tiles and the faint scent of fresh flowers in the air. His mother's laughter drifts from the kitchen, mingling with the low hum of the ceiling fan. Daniel smiles, a fleeting sense of pride swelling in his chest. She is safe, she is well, and it is all because of him. Yet it is not enough. The money Mrs. Adana provides, at first a desperate lifeline, becomes a river he cannot resist wading into. The first time he truly indulges, he feels a surge of exhilaration unlike anything bricklaying or schoolwork has ever offered. Designer clothes hang in his wardrobe, shoes he could barely pronounce line the shelves, and his phone buzzes constantly with messages from Mrs. Adana, each one a small command, a gentle nudge, a tantalizing promise. Friends notice the change immediately. Jide smirks when he sees Daniel climbing into a borrowed Mercedes one afternoon. Look at you, Daniel. From bricklayer to VIG. I told you it would be like this. Daniel shrugs, a blush of shame and pride mingling across his cheeks. It's necessary, he mutters, though the thrill in his chest betrays the words. Layla is the first to notice the deeper shift, the dangerous glint in his eyes. She catches him one evening outside the campus library holding a bag filled with gifts, perfume, designer shoes, and a tablet he promised to himself he would never need. Daniel, please, she says, her voice trembling. I know the money is helpful, I know your mother is better off, but look at yourself. Look at what you've become. You're leaving school, your friends, your future. All for what? A woman twice your age. Daniel's eyes harden. Layla, I told you. My mother comes first. This is for her. You can't understand. You've never had to watch someone you love almost die and feel helpless. Her hands fall to her sides and she takes a step back, defeated. I loved you, Daniel. I shared everything I had with you. And now I see you choosing her instead of us, instead of yourself. I can't. He interrupts, the words sharp and final. It's too late, Layla. Goodbye. Her heart shatters and she turns away, the quiet click of her shoes fading as Daniel watches her leave. For a fleeting moment, a pang of regret hits him, but it is drowned almost instantly by the rush of his new life. With Layla gone, Daniel fully immerses himself in the world Mrs. Adana has opened for him. He begins to understand her rhythms, her moods, the subtle ways she tests him. He anticipates her desires before she speaks, learns to laugh at her jokes even when they sting, and hones the art of making her feel indispensable. Each successful night, each luxurious gift he acquires, feels like a triumph, a confirmation that he has power, control, and influence he never had before. But indulgence brings its own costs. His schoolwork lies abandoned, his textbooks gather dust, and any hope of a normal life fades further into the background. The small circle of friends who once shared his struggles now watch with quiet disapproval, whispering about the boy who had once been ambitious, respectful, and cautious. Daniel barely notices. The wealth, the attention, the rush of excitement has become intoxicating. Even at home, the dynamic has shifted. His mother is proud, grateful, but unaware of the full extent of the moral compromise that her son has embraced. She sees only the results. A comfortable home, paid bills, and the occasional extravagant gift that she accepts with a trembling smile. The first hint of danger comes subtly. Mrs. Adana's husband, a quiet man of imposing presence, notices the way Daniel lingers a little too long, the way his laughter seems too free, the subtle glances exchanged in private rooms. He does not confront Daniel immediately, but Daniel feels it. A cold weight in the air, a tension that tightens whenever the husband is in the same house. Despite the unease, Daniel cannot stop. The wealth, the thrill, the attention, he has become addicted. He buys himself the finest clothing, shoes, and electronics. Nights are spent in expensive restaurants, clubs, and hotel rooms. Weekends are lavish trips where the world seems to bend at his command. And through it all, he rationalizes, whispers to himself, I am doing this for my mother. Everything else is secondary. But the warning signs are everywhere. Friends like Jide, who once encouraged him, now shake their heads, worry etched across their faces. Careful, Daniel, Jide warns one night as they sit in a quiet lounge, the hum of the city below. This isn't just fun and games. People get hurt. People get caught. Don't let her husband find out. Daniel laughs, brushing off the warning. I'm careful, he says, but there is a tightness in his chest, a small seed of fear that he cannot shake. Every time Mrs. Adana's husband enters a room, Daniel senses it. The scrutinizing gaze, the unspoken challenge, the subtle threat hidden beneath polite conversation. Yet the addiction is stronger than the fear. The money, the gifts, the thrill of living above his means have become essential. The very act of acquiring, of spending, of pleasing Mrs. Adana, now drives his every decision. He even finds himself justifying his dropped studies. I can always return later. For now this is necessary. At home, his mother watches him with pride, unaware of the full scope of his life. She marvels at the modern furniture, the new appliances, the occasional luxury gift he brings her from his outings. And Daniel, standing beside her, feels a pang of guilt, but he buries it beneath another wave of indulgence. As the days pass, the world seems to tilt ever more sharply in Mrs. Adana's favor. Daniel is no longer just a student or a son in need. He is a fixture in her life, an accessory to her whims, a boy grown too quickly into a man defined by desire, wealth, and dependence. The thrill of power, of control, of luxury has replaced all other ambitions. And yet, in quiet moments when the city sleeps and the lights dim low, Daniel feels a whisper of something he cannot ignore. A sense of impending consequence, a flicker of fear that the world he is building so fast could crumble just as quickly. He brushes it away each time, telling himself it is nothing, just the price of ambition, the cost of survival, the burden of being indispensable to someone who holds the key to everything he desires. The first chapters of his downfall are written not in the bruises, not in the confrontations, but in the slow surrender of ambition, morality, and caution. Daniel's life is changing irrevocably, and every choice he makes pulls him further from the boy who once loved Layla, studied late into the night, and dreamed of a different future. Outside, the city lights flicker like distant stars. Daniel leans against the balcony, the wind brushing against his face. In this moment he feels untouchable, invincible, and unstoppable. But beneath the thrill lies a warning he does not yet understand. Every indulgence, every secret, every luxurious gift carries a cost he has yet to pay. A cost that will come sooner than he expects. Daniel's phone buzzes incessantly as he sits on the edge of the king-sized bed, fingers trembling just slightly. The message is from Mrs. Adana, her words curt but commanding. Pack your things. Goodbye. Tomorrow. Business matters. Ensure you bring everything I asked for. The words make Daniel's pulse race, a mix of fear and excitement twisting inside him. Goodbye. A trip he could barely imagine before meeting Mrs. Adana. A city of skyscrapers, luxury, and limitless opportunity, or so she paints it. She has always had a way of making even the most lavish gestures feel like a necessity, a test, a privilege. But the sum she requested for business expenses is unlike anything she has ever asked for. His stomach knots as he tallies the figures in his head, the money already tight despite the fortune she lavishes on him. Jide would have laughed, shaking his head. Brother, this isn't just indulgence anymore. She's testing you. Daniel doesn't question it. He never questions her. Mrs. Adana's world is intoxicating and he has long stopped asking why. Every command, every request, every luxurious errand, he has learned to obey without hesitation. This is for my mother, he whispers to himself, though a small voice deep in his chest protests. And now for you. The next morning, Daniel is ready, his suitcase packed with clothes handpicked by Mrs. Adana herself, shoes lined perfectly, gadgets charged and neatly arranged. He flies out with her on a private flight, each mile into the sky making him feel untethered, floating in a world he never thought he would enter. In Dubai, the city is overwhelming. Towering glass buildings pierce the clouds, streets shimmer with lights reflecting off polished marble, and luxury cars hum past in endless streams. Daniel is dazzled, but there is a growing unease he cannot shake. He notices the subtle glances Mrs. Adana casts at her phone, the way she answers calls in hushed tones, the way her expressions tighten when she senses someone observing her. It is on the third night, in the suite of a five-star hotel overlooking the Burj Khalifa, that Daniel first notices the shadows. Her husband, the one he had only seen from a distance, begins to infiltrate her world. Not physically but in whispers, rumors, and the careful tracking of movements. Daniel senses it before he understands it, a cold wind brushing against the edges of his euphoria. Is something wrong? Mrs. Adana asks as they sit together in the plush lounge, champagne in hand. Her eyes are sharp, calculating, but there's a warmth that lulls him into obedience. No, everything is fine, he lies, brushing away the faint dread that crawls up his spine. He knows better than to admit hesitation, better than to suggest discomfort. To question her is to risk displeasure. And Daniel has learned the cost of displeasure. Her husband's influence begins subtly at first. A call from a lawyer in Nigeria asking questions about travel, a distant cousin sending cryptic messages about business dealings, a friend mentioning seeing her husband in a city she claimed to be far away from. Daniel feels the weight of scrutiny settling over them, a constant pressure that makes even small gestures tense. Yet he continues, oblivious to the danger, dazzled by the world of Dubai. He shops for designer clothes, eats at Michelin-starred restaurants, and follows Mrs. Adana's every command. Each day he lives in luxury. Every night he indulges in pleasures that were once unimaginable. He feels untouchable, invincible. But the seeds of trouble are already planted. Her husband's suspicion grows, sparked by the absurdity of the sums of money she spends without explanation, the way she flies Daniel out on her private jet, the way he notices subtle changes in her schedule and her evasiveness. He begins his quiet investigation, watching her movements, questioning her associates, observing every detail with meticulous precision. Back in Dubai, Daniel notices a shift in Mrs. Adana. Her messages are more insistent, her touch more commanding, her laughter tinged with something unreadable. She seems aware of the invisible gaze that shadows her, and Daniel is both fascinated and nervous, caught between exhilaration and unease. One evening, after a long day of shopping and meetings she claims are for business, they sit together in her suite, the city lights casting long shadows across the room. Daniel, still naive, admires her beauty and influence, unaware that her husband's scrutiny is closing in with each passing hour. "You're good at this," she murmurs, running her fingers over his shoulder. "You know what I like. You anticipate my needs. You make it easy for me to trust you." Daniel smiles, the flattery mixing with his growing anxiety. I just want to help. Make things easier." Her eyes, sharp and calculating, linger on his face for a moment too long. "And you're enjoying this, aren't you?" He hesitates, a pang of guilt twisting his gut. I don't know," he admits finally. I'm just grateful. For everything." She leans closer, her voice soft but commanding. "Gratitude is good. But don't forget, Daniel, life is full of risks. Some rewards are worth taking, but some come at a price." Daniel nods, unaware of just how literal her words will become. The thrill of the trip, the luxury, the near-limitless indulgence, he believes it is all worth it. But the first threads of danger, the first hints of karma, have begun to weave themselves around him, unseen but inevitable. The trip ends and they return to Nigeria, the city below buzzing with life, oblivious to the storm gathering within one house. Daniel is oblivious to the investigation quietly unfolding. He is still a boy intoxicated by luxury, a sugar boy enthralled by power, and yet the walls are closing in. Mrs. Adana's husband watches quietly from a distance, piecing together the puzzle. Daniel's face, his gestures, his indulgence, his absences, everything points to a betrayal he will not tolerate. And while Daniel counts his victories, unaware of the eye that tracks him at every turn, the first move in a reckoning has been made. Daniel's heart should have raced with fear, but it does not. He is too caught up in the thrill, too drunk on the attention, too enamored with the wealth he now believes is his alone. He believes he is untouchable, immune to the consequences that loom like storm clouds on the horizon. The Dubai trip, meant as a mere business excursion, becomes a pivotal moment. It marks the tipping point where indulgence overtakes caution, where greed overtakes reason, where a young man's ambition turns into a dangerous dependency. And as he steps off the plane, the wind brushing his face, Daniel does not notice the shadows following him home, the first whispers of confrontation, the first murmurings of a price he has not yet paid, but will soon. Daniel steps out of the sleek black SUV and into the pulsing lights of the club, the bass vibrating through the marble floor. Smoke curls around the multicolored strobe lights, mixing with laughter, shouting, and the clink of glasses. The smell of expensive perfume, alcohol, and expensive cologne hits him all at once. He has never been anywhere like this before, and yet here he feels at home. This is the world Mrs. Adana has opened to him, a world he could have never dreamed of. The first time he saw it, he hesitated. But that hesitation was short-lived, erased by Jide's teasing words echoing in his head. "Boy, stop dreaming small. Grab life by the neck. You're lucky someone's giving you this chance." Jide was right. The opportunity was there, a golden ticket, and Daniel had taken it with both hands. He had thought of his mother first, of the hospital bills, the surgeries, the upgraded house, and all the sacrifices she had made. That had justified everything, at first. But now it is not just about his mother. It is about him. He feels alive in this world of excess, untethered from responsibility. The first night he finds himself drinking champagne straight from the bottle, laughing at jokes he barely hears, throwing wads of cash at strippers dancing on raised platforms. He doesn't question it. Every bill he throws down, every tip he hands over, every indulgent drink he buys is a declaration. I am no longer the boy struggling to pay hospital fees. I am Daniel. I am powerful. I am untouchable. He sees the eyes of other men, the envious glances, the subtle nods of approval. And yet, in the middle of all this, a tiny voice whispers, "Is this worth it?" But Daniel ignores it. Nights bleed into mornings. The rhythm of the club, the pulsating music, the intoxicating scent of wealth, becomes his world. He no longer thinks about school. He no longer thinks about his friends or his girlfriend, Layla. She had warned him, pleaded with him, begged him to stay on the path, to think of a future that wasn't built on indulgence. "Daniel, you're throwing your life away," she had said, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know you want to help your mother, but this isn't the way. Don't lose yourself." But Daniel had laughed it off, kissed her forehead and walked away. The pain in her eyes followed him like a shadow he refused to acknowledge. Now she is gone, married to a man who loves her, taking her abroad for her master's degree. She has a happy ending. He has nights like this. Every evening becomes a performance. Daniel buys bottles of the most expensive champagne, orders VIP rooms for himself and whoever he deems worthy of his attention. Strippers flirt, dance, and bow to him like he is royalty, their movements mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. He tips lavishly, clapping his hands, laughing louder than anyone else in the room. But the more he spends, the emptier it feels. The money, once a means to save his mother, has become a drug. The luxurious car he bought, the designer shoes, the tailored suits, they are symbols of a life he no longer controls, a life that controls him. He begins to crave more. More clubs, more women, more nights that erase the past and blur the consequences of tomorrow. Mrs. Adana watches from a distance, a sly smile playing on her lips. She feeds the fire, encourages it, whispers the dangerous thrill of excess. One night, in a private VIP lounge, she leans over him as he flirts with a dancer, her voice low and seductive. "You're doing well, Daniel. I like the way you handle yourself. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her words, meant to empower, have a different effect. They cage him, trap him further in a world he cannot leave. Daniel feels a rush of adrenaline, a sense of importance, but also a strange pang of unease. This is no longer just helping his mother. This is about him, about pleasure, about indulgence, about a life built on desires he barely understands. Jide notices the change too. "Boy, you've changed," he says one night, the words sharp, cautionary. "You were smart once. Now look at you, dancing, spending, laughing at money like it grows on trees. You're walking a dangerous path." Daniel shrugs him off, a wide grin plastered on his face. "I'm living, Jide. You should try it." But deep down, Daniel feels the first tremor of fear. The thrill of the club, the strippers, the late-night parties, he loves it, yes, but he notices the small things. The men who watch him a little too closely, the whispers of jealousy, the eyes of authority subtly scanning the crowd. He shakes it off, telling himself he is untouchable. And yet Mrs. Adana's husband is not idle. He is watching, quietly calculating. Every extravagant move Daniel makes, every reckless night out, every indulgent purchase. It feeds the suspicion, the anger, the need for retribution. One evening, after yet another night of indulgence, Daniel steps out into the cool air, the Dubai skyline behind him. He feels alive, unstoppable, the king of his own world. But as he walks to his sleek car, a shadow flits across the window of a nearby building. A man in a dark suit, observing, noting, remembering every detail. Daniel doesn't see him. He doesn't know that the seeds of karma, sown by his own choices, have already begun to sprout. The man is a messenger, an observer, someone who will ensure that the balance Daniel has disrupted is corrected in the harshest way possible. Back at his apartment, Daniel counts the cash he has earned, or rather the cash Mrs. Adana allows him to have. He orders more luxuries online, more clothes, more gadgets, more pleasure. He is intoxicated by the ease of it, the simplicity of obtaining what he wants. And yet, a gnawing thought bites at the edges of his mind. How long before this ends? How long before the price comes due? He pushes it away. The night calls him back. Clubs, lights, music, women, champagne. He is a man lost to indulgence, A boy seduced by power, a student of pleasure, a sugar boy in the truest sense. And far away the first moves of a reckoning are being made. Mrs. Adana's husband, quiet and meticulous, pieces together the story, watching the nights, tracking the flights, noting the spending. The net is closing in, invisible yet inevitable, and Daniel, lost in his world of excess, does not yet realize how fast the fall will come. Daniel pushes his cart through the polished aisles of the supermarket, the hum of fluorescent lights above blending with the soft background music. He is distracted, counting the cash in his wallet, mentally planning which club to hit tonight. A sleek bottle of whiskey catches his eye, and he tosses it into the cart without thinking. Life feels easy, effortless, like every desire can be bought, every worry erased with a swipe of a card. He does not notice the man watching him. At first, Daniel brushes it off. Dubai is full of strangers. Some stare, some glance, some ignore, but he is used to attention now. He's a young man with expensive clothes, a confident swagger, a polished watch, and the air of someone untouchable. He is Daniel, the sugar boy, the man living a life others only dream of. But the man in the corner, dressed in a plain black jacket, is different. He does not look at Daniel with envy or admiration. He watches with precision, silent and calculating, moving as subtly as a shadow. He follows Daniel through the fruit aisle, past the bakery, keeping a careful distance, letting Daniel's sense of security lull him into carelessness. Daniel pauses by the cheese section, weighing a block of imported Gouda in his hands. He doesn't sense the figure behind him, doesn't hear the soft footsteps, doesn't feel the cold weight of scrutiny. His phone buzzes in his pocket, a text from Mrs. Adana confirming their next meeting. He smiles and types a quick reply, entirely oblivious to the eyes on him. "Man, you're lucky," he murmurs to himself. "Life just keeps giving." Behind him, the shadow shifts, stepping closer, adjusting his pace to match Daniel's without revealing his intent. There is a subtle tension in the air, a weight Daniel cannot feel yet. The man is meticulous, patient, a hunter circling his prey. Every move Daniel makes, every aisle he turns, every item he picks up, is noted, recorded, remembered. Daniel heads to the frozen section, opening the freezer doors and scanning the rows of ice cream and ready-made meals. He tosses a pint of premium gelato into his cart, laughing to himself at how easy life has become. Money flows like water now, easy and endless. The guilt that once tugged at him, the memory of Layla's pleading, his mother's sacrifices, has dulled under the bright lights of wealth and pleasure. The man follows him into the cleaning supplies aisle, keeping out of sight but never losing track. He takes a small notebook from his jacket pocket, jotting down details. The expensive shoes, the designer bag slung over Daniel's shoulder, the faint but unmistakable scent of Mrs. Adana's perfume still lingering on him. The husband's eyes are sharp, cold, filled with the weight of betrayal. Every detail is ammunition, every moment a step closer to justice in his mind. Daniel grabs a bottle of detergent, examining the price tag. A part of him marvels at the absurdity. He remembers scrubbing floors, hauling bricks in dusty construction sites, thinking that was how life worked. And now he is here hand in hand with excess, surrounded by wealth that wasn't earned in sweat but in seduction. As he turns toward the checkout lanes, he senses movement out of the corner of his eye, a brief flicker of motion that disappears the moment he focuses on it. He shakes his head, blaming fatigue. He's been going out every night, dancing, drinking, spending, barely sleeping. The adrenaline that once thrilled him now dulls into routine. At the checkout, Daniel unloads his cart onto the conveyor belt, glancing at the items with a casual smile. The cashier scans them quickly, chatting about the weather, oblivious to the tension simmering in the aisles. Daniel pays, swiping a card with a flourish, leaving a hefty tip on the counter. He grabs the bagged groceries and heads toward the sliding doors, ready to step back into the sunlit streets of Dubai. And then he notices the reflection in the glass. A man standing across the parking lot, casually leaning against a column, eyes locked on him. For a split second, Daniel freezes. There is something different in that gaze. A sharpness, a focus, a cold calculation that makes the hair on his arms rise. He shakes his head, laughs nervously, and steps out into the sunlight. Paranoid, he mutters to himself. Just imagining things. But the man follows. Not aggressively, not in a way that draws attention, but always there, keeping pace, ensuring Daniel does not notice until it's too late. Daniel loads his groceries into the car, slamming the door shut and starts the engine. He glances in the rearview mirror, catching a fleeting glimpse of the shadow weaving through the parking lot. A chill runs down his spine. He tells himself it's nothing, a coincidence, a random man in a big city. Yet an unease settles in the pit of his stomach, unfamiliar and unwelcome. He drives off, windows down, music blasting, trying to shake the feeling. But the city streets, the honking horns, the flashing lights, all fail to drown out the tension growing inside him. Somewhere in the distance, the shadow remains, unseen but ever present, marking him, following him, waiting for the perfect moment. Back at his apartment, Daniel counts his cash again, laying stacks neatly on the table. He thinks about the nights to come, the clubs, the parties, the women, the thrill of indulgence. But there is a gnawing thought he cannot dismiss. The man at the supermarket, the way he moved, the way he watched. He tells himself it's nothing. Life is fun. Life is easy. Life is Daniel's. But the first threads of karma are weaving a web around him, invisible yet unyielding. The nights of excess, the reckless spending, the betrayal of trust, all of it will collide with reality soon. And when it does, Daniel will realize that no amount of money, no nights of indulgence, no escape from responsibility, can save him from the consequences of his choices. As he sinks into his plush sofa, sipping a cocktail and scrolling through messages from Mrs. Adana, he does not notice the dark figure slipping silently past the parking lot cameras, walking toward the elevator of his building, patient and prepared. The storm is coming and Daniel, lost in his world of pleasure, has no idea how close it already is. Daniel's plane touches down at Murtala Muhammad International Airport, Lagos, and the humid, familiar air hits him like a wall. Dubai had been thrilling, expensive, a blur of nights filled with champagne, neon lights, and endless laughter. But now back in Nigeria, the world feels heavier, more real, as though the consequences he has been dodging are finally closing in. He grabs his luggage, weaving through the crowd of passengers. He feels a twinge of excitement to see home, his mother's smiling face, their upgraded house, the sense of belonging he has always cherished. But underneath it all, a subtle unease gnaws at him. The image of the man in the supermarket, watching him, refusing to blink, refuses to leave his mind. By the time he reaches his neighborhood, Daniel is restless. He drops his luggage inside the house, greets his mother with an exaggerated hug and sets down the souvenirs from Dubai. She beams at him, unaware of the undercurrent of tension swirling in his life. She is healthy now, the operation paid for, her eyes shining with gratitude and relief. Daniel smiles back, masking the growing storm in his chest. But life has a way of balancing the scales. 2 days later, Daniel is walking through a local supermarket in Lagos, grabbing groceries for his mother. The store is busy, a familiar cacophony of children crying, vendors shouting, carts rattling against tiles. He moves with his usual confidence, tossing items into the basket. Imported chocolate for himself, cooking oil for his mother, a bottle of wine for the weekend. He does not notice the car parked across the lot. He does not notice the shadow lingering near the entrance. And he does not notice the men watching him through the tinted windows, their presence silent, deliberate, and intimidating. Daniel checks his phone. A message from Mrs. Adana reminding him of a business dinner she has planned for him. He laughs, shaking his head. This woman never stops, he mutters. He is still addicted to her attention, still willing to chase every thrill she dangles before him, unaware that the threads of danger are tightening around his life. The men step closer. One of them, tall and muscular, makes a subtle move, following him through the aisles. Daniel's mind is elsewhere, calculating his next indulgence, thinking about the Dubai trip, about the clubs he will hit, about the luxury car waiting in his driveway. Then it happens. A sudden shove from behind sends him sprawling to the floor, groceries scattering across the tiles. Daniel jumps up, heart racing, eyes wide, as 2 men step from the shadows. Their faces are obscured, their intentions clear. Relax, one of them says, a cold edge to his voice. You're not in Dubai anymore, boy. Daniel's first instinct is to laugh.
I've dealt with intimidation before. I'm clever, quick, resourceful.
He tells himself.
Oh
He's
God,
clever,
I'm not in
quick,
control.
resourceful. But the second shove, harder this time, knocks him against the shelves, and the gravity of the situation hits him like a brick. He's surrounded. The men are everywhere, blocking exits, closing in with a predatory patience. His heart pounds. Panic sears through him. For the first time in months, maybe years, Daniel realizes he is not in control. You, he starts, trying to catch his breath. Who sent you? The taller one smirks. The man you've been sleeping with. The one whose trust you've destroyed. You've enjoyed the life, boy, now it's time to pay. Daniel freezes. Recognition floods him. Mrs. Adana's husband. The man from Dubai he had never suspected, the one who has been tracking him silently, patiently, across continents. He tries to run, but the men are faster, stronger, more prepared. One grabs his arm, twisting it painfully, while the other slams a fist into his shoulder. Daniel stumbles, hitting the floor hard. Pain shoots up his spine. He tries to move, to scramble to his feet, but the strength of his assailants pins him down. Groceries spill, shattering bottles clattering across the floor. Shoppers scream and scatter, some rushing for help, others frozen in shock. But Daniel is alone in his terror, helpless under the weight of the men's calculated force. Please, stop, he gasps, straining against the grip. I paid her. But nothing he says matters. His pleas, his excuses, his desperation are drowned out by the cold precision of revenge. The men strike again. Daniel's body hits the floor, hard and unforgiving. Pain sears from his shoulders down his back. His vision blurs. His strength fails him. When he finally opens his eyes, he is lying on a hospital bed, sheets cold against his skin, machines beeping steadily. His body does not obey him. He tries to sit up, to move, but panic grips him as he realizes he cannot. His legs refuse to respond, heavy and unyielding. He looks down, terror etched on his face. The doctor enters, clipboard in hand, expression unreadable. You were attacked, he says flatly. Spinal injury. Paralysis is permanent. Wheelchair at the very least. Daniel's stomach twists, bile rising in his throat. The world narrows to the sterile hospital room, the smell of antiseptic, the harsh buzzing of the fluorescent lights overhead. His life, once a thrilling adventure of wealth and indulgence, has collapsed into a single horrifying reality. He thinks of Mrs. Adana, the thrill, the money, the lifestyle he had chased so recklessly. It all comes crashing down. Dubai, the clubs, the expensive cars, the luxury watches, they mean nothing now. And then he thinks of Layla. His heart twists. She had warned him, begged him, stayed loyal, shared what little she had, and he had thrown her aside for a life of excess. Now, while he lies broken, she is thriving, studying abroad, married to a man who loves her, living a life of stability and happiness. His betrayal of her loyalty, his reckless choices, have left him alone and broken. He does not cry immediately. Shock and disbelief hold him in place. But the truth is undeniable. This is the cost of the life he chose. The one-night stands, the luxury, the betrayal, the addiction to Mrs. Adana's attention. All of it has led to this. A nurse wheels him to a window overlooking the city. Lagos sprawls beneath him, vibrant, chaotic, alive. Once he would have walked these streets with confidence, charm, money, and arrogance. Now he sees them from a wheelchair, confined, powerless, trapped. Daniel closes his eyes, imagining the life that could have been. The bricklaying job, the quiet nights with Layla, the steady growth, the love and loyalty he threw aside. Regret burns hotter than any physical pain. The door opens and a shadow falls across the room. It is one of the men from the supermarket. He does not speak, does not smile. He simply watches, a silent reminder of the consequence Daniel can no longer escape. Daniel knows with a sick certainty that this is only the beginning. Karma has arrived in full force and there is no escape. Every night of pleasure, every luxury, every betrayal, each decision has been weighed and paid for in pain, loss, and a future confined to a wheelchair. And as he lies there, powerless, the image of Layla, faithful and kind, fills his mind, a stark contrast to the life he chased. The reality is inescapable. He had a chance to live differently, to earn honestly, to love and be loved. But he chose greed, indulgence, and lust. Now he must live, or rather exist, with the consequences. The hum of the hospital machines is deafening in the silence. Daniel lies in the wheelchair, staring at the sterile white walls of the ward, feeling the weight of every poor choice he has made. Every luxury he chased, every thrill he sought, every moment he ignored Layla's advice. It all comes crashing down now, magnified by the sharp sting of pain and helplessness. He reaches for his phone, trembling. Maybe Just maybe Mrs. Adana will answer. Maybe she'll swoop in as she always does and fix everything, like a magician rescuing her favorite toy. He dials her number, heart pounding, palms slick with sweat. The line clicks. Ring, ring, ring. Nothing. He tries again, faster this time, desperation making his fingers shake. Why won't she answer? He mutters aloud, voice cracking. Mrs. Adana? Another line, another click, and then silence. All her lines are switched off. He tries her office, her private line, every number he has for her. Dead. Nothing. The world narrows to this. He is alone. Truly, utterly alone. He presses his face against the cold wall behind him and lets out a hollow scream, the sound swallowed by the empty hospital corridors. No one comes. His mother, healthy and smiling just a few days ago, is now sitting quietly in the chair beside him, watching the son she fought so hard to save crumble under the weight of his own mistakes. Her eyes, once filled with pride, are now damp with worry and unshed tears. Daniel, what happened? She asks softly, reaching out to touch his arm. Her voice shakes. I can't believe this is happening. Daniel turns his head slowly, staring at her with hollow eyes. It's my fault, Mama, he whispers. All of it, my fault. He thinks of Dubai, of the clubs, the champagne, the reckless spending, the expensive watches, the cars. Every indulgence, every thrill, every promise of power and luxury, it has evaporated. Nothing remains except pain, regret, and the crushing reality of immobility. And now there's no one left to help him. As if fate is not cruel enough, reality throws another blow. He remembers the money he gave his mother to invest in that rock-stalling, money-doubling scam he had found online. A sure thing, one of his Dubai contacts had promised. She trusted him, gave every penny she had saved, all the money Daniel had scraped together to secure their future. It was gone. The scammer vanished overnight, taking everything, Daniel's life savings, his mother's hard-earned money, even some of the hospital bills she had paid herself. They were left with nothing. Nothing. Daniel presses his face into his hands, heart hammering in his chest. Nothing, we have nothing, he whispers, voice breaking. Tears streak down his cheeks, blurring the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital. His mother reaches out, trying to comfort him, but he jerks away, overwhelmed by shame and helplessness. He had been so sure he could control it all, so confident in his cunning and charm, so sure that Mrs. Adana would always be there to catch him when he fell. But now, the illusion is shattered. Days pass in a blur. The hospital becomes both a cage and a mirror. Daniel watches other patients come and go, some with hope, others with despair, and he wonders how it came to this. The boy who once dreamed of wealth, excitement, and escape now cannot move his legs, cannot grasp the world, cannot even trust anyone. He tries again to call Mrs. Adana, holding on to the smallest thread of hope, but it is futile. Every attempt ends the same way. Dead lines, disconnected numbers, silence. The woman who had once promised him adventure, money, and excitement has abandoned him, leaving him to face the consequences alone. Meanwhile, the hospital staff treat him with professional distance, unaware of the emotional storm raging inside him. Nurses wheel him to physiotherapy sessions. Doctors lecture him on spinal care, medications, and long-term recovery. But Daniel hears nothing, feels nothing. The words are hollow, meaningless. There is no solution, no magic pill, no luxury car or jet plane that can undo what has happened. He thinks of Layla, the one person who had stood by him, who had begged him to stay on the right path, who had shared her meager provisions with him when he had none of his own. She had loved him genuinely, unconditionally, without judgment. And he had betrayed her, chasing a life built on deception and lust. The memory of her tears, the pleading in her voice when he broke up with her, haunts him. He had laughed off her warnings, shrugged off her advice, thinking he was smarter, bolder, untouchable. And now he sees clearly that he was neither. He closes his eyes and pictures her abroad, studying, smiling, loved, secure, living the life he could never earn for himself. The contrast is brutal, almost unbearable. He had everything to gain and everything to lose, and he chose the wrong path. One evening, as the sun sets outside the hospital window, casting long orange shadows across the room, Daniel finally speaks, his voice barely a whisper. Mama, I have nothing to give you anymore. I failed you. I failed myself. She reaches for his hand again, holding it tightly as if her presence alone can anchor him. Daniel, life is cruel sometimes, she says softly. But we still have each other. That's what matters. Daniel shakes his head, tears flowing freely now. No, Mama. We had each other. But I threw it away. I chose the easy path. I let the woman, the money, the thrill. I let it take everything. And now, there's nothing left. The hospital room grows quiet, the machines beeping steadily as night falls outside. Daniel stares at the ceiling, body confined, future uncertain, and the bitter taste of betrayal lingering in his mouth. He is trapped, not just by his wheelchair but by his own choices. The luxury life he chased is gone, the sugar mommy has vanished, the scammer has stolen their last hope, and the one girl who truly loved him has moved on, happy, free, and untainted by his mistakes. Daniel is left in the wreckage of his own making, forced to confront the consequences of greed, lust, and betrayal. And as the hospital lights dim, casting long shadows across the floor, Daniel whispers to himself, voice raw and trembling. This is my life now. Alone. Broken. Betrayed. And there is no one left to save me. The air in the city feels heavier now, the lights harsher, the noise unbearable. Daniel sits in his wheelchair, staring blankly out of the hospital window as the realization sinks in. He can no longer afford the treatment that once kept him alive, the therapies that promised even a sliver of recovery. Every day costs money and there is none left. His mother, weary but resolute, packs what little belongings they have left. The apartment they had upgraded, filled with luxury items and reminders of a life built on Mrs. Adana's money, is now empty. Furniture is sold, electronics gone, everything that once symbolized Daniel's reckless indulgence vanished in the blink of an eye. They leave the city, the sounds of traffic fading behind them, replaced by the familiar, dusty roads of their village. The village seems almost unchanged. Simple homes, goats roaming freely, children running barefoot through the dirt. But to Daniel it feels foreign. The smell of wood fires and damp earth, the quiet rhythm of life slowed by poverty, is a stark contrast to the luxury and chaos of the city he once conquered. His mother guides him carefully through the uneven village paths, his wheelchair clattering over stones and ruts. Every bump, every jolt, sends sharp reminders of his paralyzed body. He can barely move his legs and even his upper body feels weak from weeks of neglect. The villagers whisper as they pass, some familiar faces from his childhood, others strangers. Daniel senses the judgment in their eyes, the pity, and it gnaws at him. He had been the boy who dreamed big, the one who chased a glamorous future. Now he is a shadow reduced to a shell on wheels. At home the conditions are primitive. Their small village house, once a haven in his childhood, now feels like a cage. The walls are bare, the floor cold, and the air heavy with humidity. There is no hospital, no physiotherapist, no medication beyond the local remedies they scrape together from village herbs and roots. Daniel watches as his mother prepares the concoctions, crushing leaves, boiling roots, and muttering prayers under her breath. He knows she is trying, but the fear in her eyes mirrors the terror he feels inside. Daniel, drink this slowly, she says softly, holding a small wooden cup of dark liquid. It's all we have for now. He takes it with shaking hands, the bitter taste coating his tongue, choking him almost instantly. He gags but swallows anyway, hoping, praying for even a fraction of recovery. Days turn into weeks. Daniel's body deteriorates further. Without proper therapy or treatment, his muscles atrophy, his skin grows pale and mottled, his mind drifts in and out of consciousness. He becomes a vegetable in his wheelchair, staring blankly at the cracked walls, barely responsive to the world around him. His mother tries to coax him, to speak to him, to spark even a flicker of life. Daniel, look at me, son. Can you hear me? She whispers, placing her hand on his shoulder. Sometimes he turns his head slightly, a faint recognition in his eyes, and she holds on to it like a lifeline. Other times he drifts away entirely, lost in a fog of pain and regret. The villagers, initially curious, now treat him with a mix of sympathy and distance. They offer herbs, prayers, small gestures of kindness, but their pity only deepens his mother's sorrow. She moves tirelessly around him, washing, feeding, tending to him, while also struggling to maintain a meager life in the village. At night, when the fire is low and the crickets fill the air, Daniel sometimes hears echoes of his past life. The laughter of Mrs. Adana, the bright lights of Dubai, the thrill of clubs and champagne. But those memories bring no comfort, only a hollow ache in his chest. He thinks of Layla often, imagining her abroad, happy, loved, thriving. She had begged him to stay true, to avoid the easy temptations, to build a life without shortcuts. She had loved him without conditions, shared her meager provisions, and even in her heartbreak moved on to a life of promise. And he is trapped in a nightmare of his own making.